1. For the second slide, 3, 2, 1. For the third slide, 3, 2, 1. For the fourth slide, 3, 2, 1. For the fifth slide, 3, 2, 1. For the sixth slide, 3, 2, 1. For the seventh slide, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to the documentation team. Without further ado, we have prepared 3 breakout rooms for each group. FLT delegates are welcome to enter the breakout room according to the order that has been read out before. See you later on the breakout room.
Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome to Breakout Room 2 for all delegates and audiences. In this room, there will be 4 teams that will present their subtopics for a maximum of 10 minutes for each team. Namely, team number 1, San Beda University from Philippines will talk about fast fashion. The second team will be from Erlangga University from Indonesia, will talk about plastic waste. The third team from Texin University from Thailand will share about how consumptive culture in their country. And lastly, University from Abu Meikalfi from Benin will talk about food waste. Now, we will start by the presentation of each team. First, we will listen to the presentation of the first team. To San Beda University from Philippines, you may start presenting now.
I think I'm having problems with sharing my screen.
I think let me contact the house first to allow you to share the screen.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe now you can try again to share the screen.
Confirmation, am I heard?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, so now let us start. When you think about fashion, what comes in your mind? Elegance, cool, stylish, or even glamour? Well, we both have the same thing in mind. Well, fashion is something that always catches our attention, my attention. I don't know with you, but I really love fashion. And I think it's already a part of our generation. That is why we would like to present to you what is fast fashion and what it might and can potentially bring us. With this discussion, we'll provide points and data concerning why fast fashion is a thing that we must be aware and know of. That's why, with the next slide, is the dark side behind the glamour of the fashion industry. My name is Elijan Guarino. I'm a second year entrepreneurship student. And here with me is my beautiful partner, Miss Diane Sheng, a third year BS Economics and Public Policy student. And we are from San Beda University. Fast fashion, with simple words, is simply the mass production of cheap, poor quality, disposable clothing. They are also responsible for the 8 to 10% of greenhouse gases, which is the cause of climate change. The more that we support this type of production, the more climate change occurs, therefore harming our environment. So with this discussion, I will be starting by introducing 2 sustainable development goals that is going to be used for this discussion. The first sustainable development goal is the responsible consumption of production. And here you can see the target of this one. So I'll be giving you 3 seconds to read it. And 1, 2, and 3. And that is the goal of the first sustainable development goal, which is the number 12. And second will be the sustainable development goal number 13, which is climate action. Its goals are to combat and look for ways to fight climate change. So that, why? Why is fast fashion is a problem? Why is it a problem? That is why with this discussion, I'm going to introduce to you and give you the environmental impact of fast fashion. Number 1, the cotton industry uses 2.5% of the world's farmland, and cotton is known for an easy way for insects to come. That's why there are a lot of very harmful chemicals that is being used in cotton so that insects cannot infiltrate them or harm them. So this includes nerve agents and neurotoxins. That's the chemical that is found in these crops. Number 2 is there are 342 million barrels of oil used in fast fashion every year. Number 3 is 43 million tons of chemical used for coloring clothes. So what does this lead to? It leads to the pollution with our rivers, our water systems, and any ocean, any water types that we can have, rivers and such. And lastly, 1.2 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year is being emitted, more than air travel and shipping combined. That's why, in conclusion, greenhouse gases is responsible for climate change, which I've been trying to specify these past slides of how truly the production of these clothes had a huge impact and an effect on climate change. So now I will be saying this quote or this statement. There is only limited amount of supply in the world. Again, there is only limited amount of supply in the world. So we live in a world in which human wants are infinite, but the land, labor, and capital required to satisfy those wants are sadly only limited. That's why I'm going to present to you the effects of fast fashion. So fast fashion dries up and pollutes our water systems, such as rivers and streams. And when it comes polluted, it will really affect our economy and our environment, which is a really big thing because we mostly rely on rivers for the separation of life, such as plants and such. That's why fast fashion is also next to the biggest pollutants, next to plastic bottles. That's why with this one, us in the Philippine culture or in the Philippine setup, we have a culture, which is the Changi culture. It's a phrase meaning flea market or a bazaar. So with this one, we sell clothes locally. So those who have made these clothes, we sell it to a lot of people and making it accessible to different types of people. That's why another famous thing next is the ukay-ukay. So ukay-ukay is a thing for Filipinos where they could buy cheap clothes, pre-loved clothes, and gather it and sell it at an affordable price. That's why, with this said, may I call on my beautiful partner, Miss Diane Sheng, to discuss the next part of our discussion.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Diane, and I'll be taking over to discuss the remaining parts of this presentation. Now that we are more familiar with fast fashion, its primary cause, and the measures that we can take to address it, let us now dive deep into the specifics of fast fashion. In the case of the Philippines, are there regulations that manages the impact of fast fashion? At a precursory analysis, one might think that there isn't any regulation in the Philippines to address the impact of fast fashion. In a way, it is true, in that there is no direct law or regulation to control or inhibit consumption behavior. In the case of the Philippines, this is because enshrined in Article 3 of its constitution is the mandate for the state not to intervene unless there is due process on the life, liberty, and property of persons. Sources of income fall without a doubt within the domain of private property, which means that people are relatively free to spend their money on whatever good or product they want. However, while there is the absence of direct regulation of consumption behavior in fast fashion, there exist laws that indirectly affect or control consumption levels of goods and products in the fashion industry. These regulatory measures exist at two stages of consumption. We have the purchase and disposal. At the purchase stage, we have the Department of Trade and Industry, the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, and of course, the Bureau of Customs, intervening for the interests of consumer, and in so intervening, they limit the influx of fashion products that might potentially become waste. In ways such as, for example, confiscation of counterfeit products. And at the disposal stage, we also have the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, regulating modes of disposal of fashion products. Admittedly, there are also lapses in the implementation of these indirect measures that, when addressed, could better regulate consumption behavior in fast fashion as well. Example is the mandate of the Department of Trade and Industry to educate consumers on consumption of goods and services. This could be a way for them to teach consumers about the adverse effect of excessive consumption. Now, is mandatory uniform a solution to the problem? Yes, to answer the question, it is a solution, but it is not the most effective one. At best, it is a band-aid solution because it fails to strike the problem at the root. Academic literature is filled with data and findings suggesting that the primary drive behind consumption behavior is the transition of the consumer from traditional to hedonistic. When we say traditional consumption, this refers to consumption mainly for survival, mainly for basic necessities. When we say hedonistic consumption, this refers to consumption for pleasure. You see, people nowadays consume not just to satisfy basic needs, but for the sake of pleasure. However, academics like Hirschman and Holbrook believe that people do not even really know or understand the pleasure that they seek to satisfy. This leads to the response to consume as much as possible of everything in the hopes that one of the things or services consumed is what would satisfy them. I think a more effective means to address the issue is really to first raise awareness. The first step to solve a problem is, of course, to acknowledge that it exists. In the Philippines, for example, there is little literacy or understanding of the ramifications of blindly ascribing to fast fashion. Younger generations are easily enticed by online selling platforms, persuaded by content creators, and even celebrities. There's also the dark side of fast fashion that no one ever really talks about, such as wastage, labor exploitation, etc. Really, there's a lot to unpack about the adverse effect of fast fashion in the economy that just gets buried deep or underneath in the glamour of the industry. Mandatory uniform may not be that effective because number one, it's arguably counterproductive. It will also require the production of clothing or clothing materials when existing alternatives do exist. Number two, can all students afford it, or will it just lead to additional financial burdens for them to bear? Number three, what happens to the uniform after the student has graduated? Not all of them can be donated. Thus, it will also generate additional clothing waste. And number four, is there no other less costly non-waste producing alternative? In fact, there are. And some of the sustainable alternatives are shown in this slide. It includes incentives for fashion industry to minimize waste. Let us encourage clothing donation drives, and let us eradicate the stigma of thrift shops and use them as alternative to fast fashion brands. You see, addressing fast fashion isn't about who to blame, consumers or producers. At the end of the day, sustainability is a shared responsibility. It's about taking the initiative and promoting sustainable practices. I would like to end this presentation by quoting Emma Watson. As consumers, we have so much power to change the world just by being careful with what we buy. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much from San Beda University delegates. It's very nice to see a very passionate individual talking about this topic about fast fashion. So if I can take the point from the presentation, there is no regulation that directly affects the fast fashion in Philippines. And all the solution is like mandatory uniforms and clothing donation. It only minimize and it's a band-aid solution. It's not a solution that really can stop this fast fashion. I think the government needs to be more giving action to stop this consumptive culture in Philippines. Thank you for the presentation. And the PowerPoint is very clear. It's not complicated. We can all see clearly about the material. Next, we'll listen to the presentation of material from the second team. To Erlangga University from Indonesia, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Let me present my presentation first. Thank you. Is my presentation can be seen? Okay. Hello and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Arya Satabena Putra, and I'm here going to talk about what we call like a novel, a plastic domination. Okay, you can see here that everywhere and everywhere turn is plastic in outer space, in sky, in land, in soil. Okay. Okay. Plastic is everywhere in soil. That are tons and tons of plastic that is mountains and waters and first that you can see that, like example in Citarum River, that it's very polluted in there, where is the water is so dirty and so dark that even it cannot be used, that even people around it is affected by it. And you can see, and the air is so polluted that you can see when the effect of burning it, the burning of the plastic is very harmful for our life and oxygen itself. And burning it, it will be polluted to our atmosphere. Okay, next. Okay, it causes a lot of problem. Of course, there are mountains and tons in the river, in the sky that is, but is there a solution to it? There's a lot of it, of course. Is it possible to replace a plastic? In the early 90s, plastic is the revolutionary idea that can revolve. Plastic is like Tesla finding a bulb. An Edison finding a bulb, because replacing plastic is very hard. Plastic is, we can find it in everywhere. We can find it in our phone. We can find it in our pen. That is very hard to replace. But is it possible? Of course, it's very possible. First up is paper. Paper is low durability. One advantage of paper is that decompose is much more quicker than plastic, and therefore it is less likely to be sourced of litter and pose a risk to wildlife. Paper is also more likely recyclable, where plastic bags can take between 400 and 1,000 years to decompose, it said in BBC.com. But what is the disadvantage of paper? First of all, the disadvantage of paper is the lot of consumption of trees, and you know it, because of trees is very minimum is nowadays. Because of it, is very unlikely to use paper itself. But paper itself is like a new solution, a new hope that we can replace plastic. Okay, moving on. Okay, bioplastic. Bioplastic, you can see in the right side, the spell a plastic versus conventional plastic material is renewable carbon sequestration while the plants are growing. So conventional plastic as a fossil fuel plastic can also petroleum-based polymer are derived from petroleum natural gas. Bioplastic are plastic materials produced from renewable biomass sources such as vegetable, fats, oils, and you can read it. But is it possible that use plastic? Manufacturing is claimed that manufacturing in the gas produced approximately 80% less greenhouse gases and use approximately 52% less non-renewable energy. That traditional polymer, like polymer end of life, is more effective, but is it the less? No. The last is cardboard. Cardboard has clear sustainable benefit over the plastic as it biodegradable and break down much quicker. Reusable, one of the greatest advantages is that cardboard boxes can use again and again. It use the corner of the box being flexible. They can be collapsed then when it's not used. But what is the disadvantage of it? The first of all, cardboard is easy to get through. Like when you spoon out water with spoon of made of plastic, it will not, the water is not will be go through to it. But with cardboard itself, it's easy to break down. It's because it's easy to be usable again. Okay, next, moving on. So the contributor itself to make plastic is household appliance and gadget production materials. So such as when you have the materials of furniture, like your table, your mop and something like that, or utensil itself, the spoon of plastic, your maple or what, that kind of things. It's the household experience have a lot of it. Now, the gadget production material, our phone itself, these phones, for example, is made of use many of plastic instead of steel or maybe aluminum. So the phone, laptop, computer, gadget, and manufacturing, etc., is a lot of products that are about 30% or more than 30% of in market that use plastic. Okay, next. So what is the solution? So the solution itself is waste the waste is organic and composed, and non-organic is recycled and destroyed. This process is always process when you whether it use in net geo that you say it itself, but this is the only process that we can use to make a solution. So what is it? Reduce, where we have to reduce the amount of waste and save on goods that have the potential to become waste. So think of this: you have a bottle of water, then you buy another bottle of water, but you can use the old bottle of water to drink it. So reduce. Next is reuse. Reuse the items that can be still used. Don't throw them away immediately, but as much as possible, reuse them over and again. For example, yeah, in the picture, you can see that bottle of water is used as a pot. This is one of the example that maybe is a solution that have been made over and over, but this is the most advanced solution that can be found right now. Recycle, of course. Recycling paper waste can make an extraordinary work even through its material from waste materials. Okay, moving on. Have you ever heard about Teamsys? Teamsys is basically where Mr. Beast and his corporate make called Mark Robert itself make a clean out of the world, that Mark Robert itself use technology to clean river, and Mr. Beast giving away money to make people clean it itself. So this project is so huge that even Elon Musk donated around $1 million to it. So the Teamsys is one of the project that can be used. So what is the solution? And next, socialization from influencer, famous people, etc., that can be used to influence a lot of people. This Teamsys is a great success, it's big success, because it cleans a lot of garbage in the water area, basically in river, lake, and sea. Okay, so that's all. Thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, thank you so much from delegates from Erlangga University for presenting about the plastic waste. It's a very interesting take on this case of the plastic waste, because I'm an Indonesian people too, so I feel the same, that all the rivers are polluted with the plastic waste. So that I can conclude from this presentation is most rivers in Indonesia are polluted so bad, and the people near the river even can use the water. So is it possible to replace this plastic waste that pollute all the rivers? There is any solution like paper, bioplastic, and the most possible material to replace plastic is cardboard, because it's reusable and will not pollute the environment. Maybe that's the conclusion from the presentation. Thank you so much for the presentation. And next, we'll listen to the presentation material from our third team, the Texan University from Thailand. You may start presenting now. Am I still audible? Sorry.
Yes, Marcel. Your audio is okay. It's clear.
Okay, maybe the delegate from Texan having some technical problem. Next, maybe we'll listen to presentation from our fourth team to University of Abu Meikalfi from Benin. You may start presenting now. Okay, if there is no delegates from Benin, now maybe this is the end of the presentation session. Thank you to all of the team who have presented their subtopic chosen. Now we'll move to the discussion session. After we hear the material presentation from each team, I will read out 6 questions that will be our case to be discussed. Delegates will be given 1 hour to discuss all of the questions one by one, and I will read out the question. Then delegates will take turns to answer and discuss the question and problem given. Starting for the first question. The first question is, since our demand for things make companies profitable and provides employment, consumption is essential to economic growth. But on the other hand, the impact of excessive consumption is very harmful for our environment because it produces a lot of waste or products that are very difficult to decompose. Who do you think is more responsible for people excessive consumption? Companies that create products or consumers who continue to create demand? Okay, maybe who wants to answer this question first?
Can I answer?
Yes, of course.
Okay. I believe or think that truly both the consumer and the company have faults or have liability regarding this one. But I believe it really depends on the consumer very the most, because first the consumer is the one that demands it. Since there is the law of supply and demand, if there's a lot of supply, there's also a lot of demand. And since the consumer is the one demanding it, therefore what they're doing is they're going to supply and make a lot of it. That's why with this one, I think that the consumer is the one at fault in this one, but also the one that makes this fault are those that produce it, which is the company. That's why with this one, both plays a big part. It also is the one generating the flow of income, especially with the Philippine setup. So while it is sad to see that despite it having an economic impact, while it generates money and such, it is not healthy for our environment. So what we ought to do as individuals, as the future leaders of the world, we need to be educated and to fully know what excessive consumption is. Because once we know excessive consumption, that's the time we can be advocates for change. That's the time where we can be advocates for true change leadership, because we are living examples of what humans ought to be. We are leaders who stand out among the rest. And as my partner mentioned, that the consumption has already changed from before. Consumption is just for survival, but right now it's most likely become an hedonistic tendencies or selfish tendencies for people to consume so that they could survive and to crave for their social status. And I think that is my side for this question. And thank you.
Okay,
I'd like to continue.
continue. Okay.
Okay. Honestly, I think that both producer and consumers bear liability for the prevalent practice of excessive consumption these days. As I've mentioned earlier, sustainability is a shared responsibility. There has to be action on from all stakeholders to address this issue. It's easy and convenient to argue that it's the producer who should bear greater responsibility. After all, when you think about it, one could argue that it's their actions that have direct impact on the environment. Proceeding from the perspective of fast fashion industry, it's so easy to give examples why this is the case. For example, by definition of fast fashion, as discussed earlier, there is a replication of fashion items at lower cost to appeal to consumers. You see, experience teaches us that when companies resort to produce the cheapest available product to be available and to dominate the market, there are often a lot of concessions that they have to make. Unethical labor practices. Why? Because fast fashion brands outsource their production process to countries with cheap labor, and this arrangement allows them to bypass responsibility under local labor laws. We also have the increased global carbon emissions in their production processes. According to Earth.org, fast fashion usually contributes to pollution and climate change because of their production processes' negative impact on natural resources like water, and of course, their unethical use of microplastics in their products, which are non-biodegradable, and it contaminates water sources. We also have the use of energy-intensive processes, which requires large amount of petroleum. From these few examples, it's so easy to pin majority of the blame on the producer. However, emerging studies and recent academic discourses would argue that consumers also bear significant role in sustainability drive in fast fashion, or in consumptive behavior or in our culture as well, or in general. Dr. Helen Crowley, who is a sustainable expert, weighs in on this debate, positing that consumers have the combined purchasing power to change the industry's behavior. She argues that consumers have to be aware that they are not victims per se. They must empower themselves to self-educate and self-advocate because their purchasing decisions can compel fast fashion conglomerates to change their behavior and practices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, delegates from Sanbeda, for the answer. Is there any other delegates who want to share their opinion about this question?
Well, maybe I just want to add a little bit more, but actually, I really agree with both of you, Guarino, and I'm sorry, Guarino and Shang. Wow, both of you really have a great perspective, and I really agree that um, who's responsible with this excessive consumption? Well, of course, both parties are responsible because yes, the customer the ones who creates the demand and also the producer who following the demands. So both parties really need to be responsible. And maybe I just want to add like the implementation how to reduce this excessive consumption from both sides. Well, I think from the production side, maybe um, they can create more products that are environmentally friendly and then start changing their materials to non-toxic materials, use less chemical materials, and maybe they can reprocess their chemical waste before being disposed in the landfill. And then they can start to have objective that is not only profit oriented but also environment friendly. They can start to reuse and recycle their packaging. And from the consumer side, maybe um, please don't buy something impulsively, but buy something with conscious shopping principle. So when you want to buy something that you're really conscious to buy it, like, do I really need it? Or this is only my wants, not my need, yeah, something like that. And also maybe the consumer can try to DIY some things like toothpaste from baking soda, and maybe you can DIY some soaps too. And yes, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shannon, delegates from UNPAR, for the answer. Is there any delegates who want to share their opinion again about this case? Okay, if there is no any other delegates who want to share their opinion, so may I conclude the little bit of the answer from Sanbida delegates and UNPAR delegates? The first thing is consumer will always make a lot of demand, but responsibilities are both consumer and producer, because the more demand from consumer, producer will more produce a lot product and cheapest available product. So people love their product and buy more of their product. That's the responsibilities of the producer. Their mass production will pollute the environment like water and air from the carbon that's released from the production. Both parties are responsible for this case. And last, producer will not produce if there is no demand at all, and we need to recycle more to stop harming the environment. And we need to different between our want and needs that we can buy also, that including a fast fashion that presented by Sanbeda before. Maybe you can continue, Ari, for the question number 2.
Okay, thank you very much, Marcel, and greetings everyone. I'm sorry, my name is Ariel from Breakout Room 3. And first of all, I want to apologize for the change of breakout rooms. And so now I will accompany Marcel to guide this breakout room. And please welcome the two delegates from Parahyangan Catholic University who originally came from Breakout Room 3. To Marcel, to Shannon and to Catherine. And now please allow me to continue to read out the questions. Now, question number 2. All right. Livestock and their byproducts are responsible for 51% of the global greenhouse gas emission because they rely on a lot of energy and resources to produce. Based on this problem, can the adoption of a plant-based diet be an applicable solution to reduce the greenhouse gas emission? All right. Is there anyone or any delegate who wants to go first?
Perhaps I could go first for the open argument.
Sure.
Okay. The adoption of a vegetarian diet or plant-based is an applicable solution to reduce global warming. It is indeed true, because vegetarianism helps to prevent wildlife habitat loss and deforestation. Reduced meat consumption can assist to reduce deforestation and conserve wild animal habitats. Deforestation can result in issues such as dwindling food supplies and isolating inhabitants. The single most important thing an individual can do to reduce global warming and to do it faster and more efficiently than by any other means is to adopt vegetarian diet or plant-based. A vegetarian diet contributes to a cleaner and safer environment and better health while causing less pain and suffering for the innocent animals. And vegan and vegetarian are different too. From a human's perspective, it is not as strict as vegan diet, as we already know. That's why lots of people prefer vegetarian diet anyways. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much to Catherine. And is there any delegate who wants to add something or give their opinion? Okay, we have Mr. Guarino. I'm sorry if
Hello.
I spelled your
Yeah,
name
it's
wrong.
okay.
Hi.
My name is Elijan, and my pronouns are he and him. And I will be starting answering the question. So let us think of a world of like us being vegetarians. That's why this is how I'm going to explain it. In the Philippine setup, adopting a vegetarian diet will surely and significantly help with global warming. Firstly, with adopting a vegetarian diet, we could help individuals have self-control. And when we're going to have self-control over what we need to eat, we are going to be aware on what we are eating. That's why, since we are eating vegetables and healthy things, we will want more and demand more of these healthy things. That's why if we are going to be a vegetarian diet people, we could really increase the economical impact of the agriculture over the whole world. And I believe that is literally will be the biggest impact of this. And truly it will reduce the global warming because of how the government can truly support the agriculture, because that is where the Philippines also is rich with, because we really have a big landmass here in the Philippines. But the only problem that we're having is that the government simply doesn't necessarily support our local farmers. And that's really the sad thing about it. But what we can do is be advocates, be leaders, stand out and fight for the farmers, because being a farmer is not just any job. It's not just any job. It's a noble job. That's why with the Philippines, farmers are a demand. Since it's a demand, the people or the government or the leaders don't demand them. And we need to take action for this one. That is why with this one, we could help the world, because instead of focusing on infrastructure, focusing on the land or anything, we should focus on these farmers, because they're the hope of the people. They're heroes. They're everything. They're our leaders. They should be the example of hard workers. That's why with this one, this is why I'm going to conclude it. If we are going to support the agriculture, if we're going to have a vegetarian diet, we could significantly really reduce global warming because of how we're going to support and implement agriculture and being a vegetarian diet, having a vegetarian diet, so that people can be aware, be leaders, and most especially be rich with their agriculture in their own countries. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much for Mr. Guarino. That was a really insightful answer, and that was really amazing. Thank you very much. And now, is there some maybe another delegate who wants to add? Yes, to Mrs. Sheng.
Yeah, I'll just like I just want to add, I think adopting a vegetarian diet, yes, it is an applicable solution to reduce global warming. But while this recent study is very promising, it's unavoidable to have few concerns about it. I think we should also consider the specific scenarios in each country at present that might lead to difficulties for it in shifting to a vegetarian diet. In the case of the Philippines, of course, for example, as we are located along a trajectory where storms and typhoons usually course through and occur, the effects of super typhoons on our vegetable and crop yields are very significant to the point that as of last month, retail prices of certain vegetables are still on a price hike, rising to as much as 40 pesos per kilogram after severe tropical storm Paeng devastated the country. The onion conundrum that we are facing now is even worse. Recently, there have been a reported shortage of onions in the Philippines, but the reason as to why is still quite unclear. To summarize, while we are presented with a very feasible solution in the worldwide adoption of a vegetarian diet, the next step, I believe, is for us to carefully and cautiously determine how do we go about implementing it, or how do we go about implementing this in a way that it is inclusive, taking into account, of course, again, the special circumstances of each country, and how do we implement it more efficient and sound. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to Mrs. Sheng. And that was really educative because I think most of us don't know much about it, especially in the Philippines, because most of us, I think, came from Indonesia. Okay, thank you very much. Next, we will move to our next delegate. Is there maybe anyone who wants to add something regarding this question? Maybe is there Mr. Arya Satya from Universitas Erlangga? Do you want to add something? Or maybe to Shannon? Do you also want to add something to about this question? Maybe you have another perspective or another opinion regarding the plant-based diet.
Well, personally, for myself, I also agree that plant-based diet or vegetarian can reduce the global warming because um, I've read it somewhere, but I'm so sorry that I totally forgot it. I read there. They said that when we cook the meat, they can produce the gas emissions. So maybe if we go for a plant-based diet and reduce to consume meat and milk and etc., something from animal. So I think yes, it will reduce the gas emission and of course it will prevent the global warming. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shannon. And I think all delegates have answered. Maybe if Mr. Arya doesn't want to add his opinion regarding this question, maybe we will move on. Right from this, all right. From this question, from the answers of all delegates, I can conclude that first of all, thank you very much to all delegates who have answered this question very well. And I think this may really open our eyes because I think that not many of us know that livestock and their byproducts are responsible to global greenhouse gas emission. They just think the livestock and their byproducts just as a normal food. So, and I can also conclude that all the delegates agree that a plant-based diet or a vegetarian lifestyle is an applicable solution to reduce greenhouse emission and to prevent global warming. And I also can conclude that there are many advantages of vegetarian lifestyle, such as being able to control themselves even more, being more healthy, and as the team from San Beda University has said, it increases economic from their agricultural aspects, especially because it supports local farmers and because the local farmers, they have big roles for the country. And I also think I agree that the government should really support local farmers and agricultural businesses. And we should also carefully determine how the implementation of the uh, vegetarian lifestyle is inclusive and applicable or implementable in each country. Thank you very much. That is all I can conclude from the discussion from question number 2. Marcel, you can go next.
Okay, thank you so much, Ari. Next, we're going to continue to our question number 3. For the question number 3, more than 85% of plastic produced are used in packaging, including single-use plastic products for food and beverage containers, end up in landfills or as unregulated waste. Most worryingly, 98% of the single-use plastic products are produced from fossil fuels. The level of greenhouse gas emission associated with the production, use, and disposal of conventional fossil fuel-based plastics is forecasted to grow to 19% of the global carbon budget by 2040. Why are the usage of plastic is still very massive, even exceeding the usage of eco-friendly products? Is it because the lack of eco-friendly product access in each country, the lack of socialization, the ease of using those products, or are there any other factors? Is there any delegates who want to answer this question first?
Can I?
Of course,
Okay,
time is
thank you.
yours.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for the time and place. Why are the usage of plastic is very massive, even exceeding the usage of eco-friendly products? Because it's very useful. It's very useful, very durable, and very cheap. And is it because the lack of eco-friendly? No, because many mass company is using the mass production is because it's very cheap. For example, McDonald's is now banning but using straw. And if you want to go to McDonald's, you will get any more than when you pour ketchup the places, it won't be used by plastic anymore. It's used by cardboard. And the lack of socialization is not, it's not about the lack of socialization for me myself. People know it very well, but plastic is dangerous. Plastic is harmful. Even in our body, we have microplastic from the water we're drinking. But why is plastic is everywhere? Because it's easy to make, it's cheap, and it's everywhere, because we cannot find a single solution that is very same thing, very revolutionary as plastic is. For example, if we use cardboard or maybe use tin foil or maybe about aluminum or maybe steel, it's much more expensive. For example, if you buy a phone, that back of your phone is, sorry for this, if it's a cheap phone, it's made of plastic. And if it's an expensive phone, it's made of fiberglass, that's Corning Gorilla Glass that you cannot even scratch with knife. That's the set of example because our economy. Another example is Adidas. Adidas use a terminology in Parley that use a reusable plastic that have come from the ocean, that it can be used as a shoe, and the shoe is much worth now. It's, oh my god, it's so expensive, the shoe is. And the other thing is, in Nairobi, the plastics can be used as a brick. It's called from Insider. It can use bread by melting it, but it's very useful. Plastic is very useful and very universal. If we lost about plastic, we lost about 70% of our utility, our phone, our keyboard, our mouse. Even my mouse is made of plastic. My camera is made of plastic. It's everywhere. So it's very hard that we have to laugh out about plastic and anyway. And what is the solution? The solution is it's very easy. It's very simple. We have to make a same revolutionary idea as plastic. If we use like for example, there's a briefing about we using shrimp skin to making a plastic, but it's very hard, and the shrimp is not gonna it's gonna extinct basically if we use a shrimp. And if you use bamboo, the bamboo and panda will what the panda will gonna eat. And if we use wood, our books like this, it's already made of paper. And what is the solution? There is not a single thing that it's very brilliant idea that can use as example to exchange with plastic. The only thing that we can do is reduce it. Reduce the way we use it. For example, I bet that if you forgot a bottle of water in your home, you will buy a bottle of water in your canteen in a restaurant for like 6,000 rupiah, but you don't know that the bottle of water that contain in the water is much more less than make it plastic. The plastic for use the bottle is very much more than the inside of it. So yeah, if there is a single idea that can break out about the usage of plastic, it's have to be the same revolutionary idea as the plastic it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the very insightful answer. Is there any delegates who want to share their opinion about this case? Maybe from Bunpar, you want to share anything about this plastic case?
Well, I couldn't be more agree actually with Arya. I'm definitely very agree with you that plastic is everywhere, and yes, anything they use plastic, I guess. Even in the water, yeah, even in the water we drink, there's microplastic in it. In our body, there's plastic in it. So yes, it's really hard to reduce it, or maybe like if you want to not use plastic anymore. I think it's almost a impossible thing. But maybe yes, I'm also agree that one of the solution is to create or like find another innovative thing that as great as plastic. But I don't know who can create that thing. So I think to reduce the plastic, we can reuse it instead of producing again. So it will increase the number of plastic. So reduce, reuse, and recycle is also the perfect way um, to reduce the plastic use. And also maybe with the economic side, especially also from Indonesia too, why eco-friendly product is still not variated because yes, many firms still not that sustainable, not still profit oriented, I think. And so that's why they don't produce a lot eco-friendly products. So that is my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Shannon, for the answer. Is there any delegates who want to share their opinion about this plastic case? Maybe from Sanbeda? Okay.
I actually agree with my fellow delegates. I think that it has something to do with humanity's dependence on plastic as a packaging material. especially for perishable or consumable goods like food, for example. It's given that plastic has good barrier properties and long usage of it as a packaging or storage material. Um, it's also so easy to use in transporting products because it's lightweight in nature. So on one hand, I can really see that the ease of use of plastic is a major contributing factor as to why the use of plastic in packaging cannot be eliminated or done away with completely. I think with regard to alternative packaging materials to plastic, especially eco-friendly ones, it's not really lack of access to it that affects the still prevalent use of plastic, but it's really as well the pricing advantage that plastic holds. Plastic is so much cheaper to use as a packaging material than eco-friendly ones, and that's what I've noticed. It's more durable too. In the Philippines, for example, you can really note the difference in grocery stores when you're done paying for your goods, and in they now put it in brown paper bags as opposed to before when they use plastic bags. The paper bags tear very easily. They have weaker structural integrity, I would say, than a plastic bag. But then, when we consider the long run consequences of shifting to paper bags, I would still say that the benefits greatly outweigh the momentary or the costs or the momentary inconveniences. But if we are really to shift for good to eco-friendly packaging materials, I think that much is needed to be invested in research and development to develop less costly, more durable, and accessible versions of this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. Is there any delegates who want to add their opinion about this case?
Can I add? Just a short one.
Okay, of course.
Well, I all agree to every delegate that is in here right now, and totally what you are saying is true, and I share the same sentiments with you. But let us think of a solution, and the solution would be we need to break the cycle because we are the start of this generation. We are the leaders of the future generation. We are young adults. We are someone that is going to stand out, and we're going to tell them that we need to break the cycle. We no longer have to continue these things. While despite the government implementing things such as like no plastic and such, it's still not being implemented fully because people would literally just focus on what is a cheap alternative. And while it is cheap, it's not the best alternative. That's why I agree with every one of you, and especially I agree with my partner, Diane Sheng, that what we need to do is really invest in the technological side of our world, because with investing in this one we can truly make the change happen. So it's just not an idea, but it will become an action of how we as individuals will support this, such as on what my friend delegate, I believe that he is our Satya Bani, of what he said of what Mr. Beast has done and what Elon Musk has donated them over 1 million. I believe that is the greatest solution for this one, and thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the opinion. I think all delegates already answered this question. So if I can conclude from this question is we are used to living all the time using plastic. Like plastic is very useful, durable, and cheap. Maybe like mass producer like McDonald already banning straw in the production, but they can release the plastic they still use. Their source packaging from plastic. The solution is we have to make a revolutionary idea like plastic that useful, durable, and cheap, like shrimp skin, for example. Like we need to stop producing plastic to reduce the number of plastic waste while we plan about the plastic substitute. And all people already know about eco-friendly product, but they're used to live with plastic because it's cheap. And lastly, we are the future of this generation, so we need to break the cycle of using plastic and find another substitute product for this plastic. Maybe that's it, the conclusion for this question number 3. You can continue, Ari.
All right. Thank you very much. And now we will continue to question number 4. Thank you. Over 50% of global food waste comes from Asia. The amount of food waste in China itself could feed 100 million people. But when we look at the Asian culture, most people in Asian countries tend to have a culture to not wasting food. Then why does the massive amount of food waste in Asia still happen? All right, this is a very interesting question because I think most of us can relate to the culture of not wasting food. And maybe I want to welcome any delegates who want to answer first. Is there any delegate who wants to go first to answer this question? Maybe from Erlangga University, to Mr. Arya Satya. Do you want to answer the question given? Or should we just, while we wait, we can skip to the next delegate to maybe to. All right, we have Mr. Guarino. All right, do you want to answer this question?
I will try to answer this question. So, first and foremost, Asia is the biggest contributor to food wastage, and truly, we all agree into one thing that we really frown upon this food wastage. But the very problem of having this kinds of wastage is that sometimes people doesn't necessarily see that they are privileged, or they see these things or this food as a means of a gift or a blessing. That's why with what I can see with this one is that we have really become big contributors of food wastage, because in the Philippine setup, a lot of people really cluster into one place together. And since they cluster into one place together, buildings such as establishments arise in this one. So establishments, restaurants, and a lot of food services are being given to the people. And due to this one, since it's easily accessible, people would just come into these places since they have that kind of money to consume. That's why with this one, I believe that we need to really think of what we are truly eating, because with food, we can really feed a lot of people. We can help a lot of people if we're just going to think about who we really are, what our status is, and what our identity is, and how privileged we can be compared to other people. That's why with this one, as a Filipino citizen, since we are gaining income, while it doesn't necessarily, actually, let's talk about social status. Rich people would eat anything they want and they would finish it because they have that kind of money to buy it. But with poor people, once they get that money, they would buy food that they think they deserve without thinking of the consequence if they either can finish it or not. So in return, they don't have money, but they ate the thing that they wanted. So what the people are doing is they're choosing the things that they want and not what they needed. And I think that's an issue that we need to solve, to always think first of whether we need it or we only want it. So I think that is my answer for that one.
Thank you very much for Mr. Guarino, and I think I can really relate so much to your answer because I myself, I experienced it a lot and I think about it. I also think it about a lot. Thank you very much. Right. Maybe is there any other delegate who wants to share their opinions regarding the case of Asian food waste?
Yeah, I want to try.
Okay, thank you. Right.
If I want to make an example from Western and East culture, yeah, it's true that Eastern culture is, what is it called? It is banned from not cleaning your plate, something like that. But throwing away, like CNN Insider said, but why are we throwing away perfectly edible food? Because it's easily because we have to make a perfect food because it's a rot a little bit, throw it away. But the other thing is what I see in my perspective, Western food is more like they give it a special treatment. Food is something that is expensive out there. For example, in Indonesia itself, McDonald's, it can be called an expensive food, but out there is just cheap food just for everybody. Because for that setting of example itself, that we can see that the different of food itself that have many market display that have a different perspective. But also, like, you have the culture, like, say, mukbang. It's came from Asia, and itself that food waste in China cities, it's about it's an at or at 93 grams per person per meal, around 12. It's I think it's not about a personal perspective, or food is an example of luxury itself. Many people have not eaten by it, and many people have died starving by it. But how we are not seeing that it's example, or it's an urge for us to clean up our plates, because we don't have that many urge. It's not about culture itself, it's about perspective and globalization itself for me. Globalization itself, that see that many fields in TikTok itself in Western culture have food waste that have been YouTuber that reviewed by it. For example, itself, Xi Jinping in August 2020 launched a clean plate campaign. That is one of the campaign that need to be socialized, because we and our society itself, it's because of globalization, standardization of food itself, different set of economics, and the food that we have standardization is have to be high itself, because in if I want to differentiate again, in the Asia we have a lot of resource to make food. Example, Thailand have a lot of resource to make to produce rice. Japan, we have a lot of fish like sushi or something else. Indonesia, Philippines, and other things have a lot of way to produce food that it cannot bargain by it, because it's easy to access and it's easy to throw. It's my conclusion itself, because in other things the economics different, because of in Western culture. I think the food is more expensive. We can buy a nasi padang in here, but we cannot buy some nasi padang is like 2 times in New York City, for example. It's much more expensive, because we have the set of value itself in food in different of price, but the price range of itself, it's different by the economic itself. That's it, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to Mr. Arya Satya for your answer to this question. And is there maybe any delegate who wants to go next? Who wants to continue to discuss this question?
Okay. I think Asia is very broad. We need to be able to pinpoint the biggest contributor to food wastage, because this presupposes that this factor is a result of commonalities in experiences, or tradition, culture, and circumstances that is applicable to all Asian countries. But Asia as a continent is very diverse, with each country having its own colorful history, distinct practices, culture, and that they are all very differently situated. For example, there was this study conducted and published by Dutch scientists that links affluence to food waste. Based on their study, the rapid urbanization, development and middle class population or population growth in Asia is the main factor behind excessive food wastage in the continent. Their data even reveals that countries like Indonesia and of course the Philippines are currently close to a threshold of a food waste explosion. However, one possible reason I could also think of is that when we think of food wastage, we almost always look at it only at the disposal stage. But wastage also occurs at the production stage. Contextualizing this in the Philippines, it becomes more relatable considering that when super typhoons hit us, as mentioned, they decimate a lot of vegetable and crop farms, leading to wastage. Also, when there is miscalculation on the amount of particular perishable goods to be imported in the country, and vice versa, the actual local production output, this results in wastage way before even we get to the disposal level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Sheng, for your answer. And is there maybe any delegate who wants to add something? Who wants to add?
I want to add, but from Indonesia perspective,
Okay, sure.
I agree with all of your with all of the delegates' opinion for sure, but especially the one that the delegate from Erlangga University, that Indonesia still have the problems on malnutrition and hunger. But the irony is that we're still experiencing a large food waste problem. And I found some facts currently based on data presented by the Economist Intelligence Unit in 2017. Indonesia is the second largest food waste contributor in the world after Saudi Arabia. I even shocked by this fact. And a recent study from Bappenas, Waste for Change, and WRI Indonesia also revealed that the amount of food waste and food loss in Indonesia from 2000 and 2019, which is 19 years, reached 23 until 48 million tons per year, when the average, each individual contributes 300 kilos of waste. According to the Ministry of National Development Planning, food loss and waste in Indonesia is dominated by grains such as rice, corn, wheat, and related products, while the least efficient type of processed food is vegetables, which account for 62.8% of total domestic losses in Indonesia. Research agency The Economist Group also revealed in the 2016 study that Indonesia needs to change its infrastructure and increase consumer awareness to curb the increase in food waste. And the EIU recommends the governments begin imposing fines on food wasters and providing incentives to households and businesses that use edible food for human consumption, animal feed, industrial use, and anaerobic digestion and composting. And from my personal opinion, I really agree with the Sanbeda delegate that we need to be able to break the cycle. So it's a must for us. It's a mandatory for us to try to break the chains, and we need to not follow everyone else, and we need to just eat based what we need, what our body needs, not what we want, not what we desire all the time. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you very much to Catherine for sharing your opinion. Is there maybe anyone who wants to add another opinion or another perspective regarding the question of Asian food waste? All right. I think that's all. Thank you very much for all of your answers. And actually, as someone who was born and raised in Asia, I personally can relate so much to this culture of not wasting food wherever and whenever we need. But in the other hand, it's also a bit ironic because we as Asian people contribute a lot to excessive food waste. And I also think that since all of you came from Asian countries, maybe most of you can also relate to this case. And from our discussion, I can conclude that in Asia, many people don't actually realize that they are actually privileged and they take a lot of food for granted because they have the access, they have the money, they can buy whatever they want and whatever they need. But this causes people to not be aware about what they want, about what they actually need or what they desire. So they just buy many things, many food, and they waste it and they take it all for granted. And that's why we really need to think about what we need, not just always buy what we want or what we desire all the time. And in Asia, of course, we have a lot of resources to produce many kinds of food, not just in Indonesia, not just in Thailand, not just in Philippines or in Japan, but in many countries. And that is why it is easy for us to get and easy for us to access the food. That's why we often take it for granted, and we must think more about it. We must think that the amount of food we waste can actually feed a lot of people who experience hunger around the world. That is something we need to take accountable, and that is something we really need to think about. And as the young generation, I think I can also agree with all of you that we need to break the cycle of the excessive amount of food waste, and by just eating what you need, not just always what you desire or what you want all the time. And that really concludes all of it. Thank you very much. Maybe Marcel, you can continue to the next question.
Okay, thank you, Ari, and all delegates who have answered the question number 4, and we can continue to question number 5. So the question is, according to Business Insider, fashion production comprises 10% of the total global carbon emissions, as much as the European Union. It dries up water and polluted river and streams, while 85% of all textiles go to dumps every year. Even washing clothes release 500,000 tons of microfibers into the ocean each year. That equals to 50 billion plastic bottles. What kind of action do you think the government should take to reduce the negative effects caused by the fashion industry? So for this question, any delegates want to start? Maybe I think from Sanbeda can start because they talk about the fast fashion before.
I'll go first. So I think governments can increase tax sanctions against the fashion industry, but right now I think governments might be hesitant to do so, considering that the fast fashion industry is no small contributor to boosting economic performance. In fact, during times of recession and during the pandemic, the lipstick index kicks into somehow. It still circulates money into the economy. Although admittedly there is still quite a scarcity of data to conclusively show if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but the fact remains that sales of specific fashion products and items are closely linked to recession and economic downturn scenarios. If the government imposes taxes on these products during times when their sales contribute to alleviate the effects of, say, for example, a global pandemic, it might risk making a reality the idiom that you killed the goose that lays the golden eggs. However, I would also concede that if we were not on the brink of recovery from a global economic meltdown on account of the past or on the account of this pandemic, it would be a good thing for governments to increase tax sanctions for the fashion industry. While it can be argued that they can just shift the additional or producers can just shift the additional tax to consumers, it's not something that they can easily do, I think, because economically speaking, considering that demand for fashion products can be elastic, producers have to be careful in increasing the price of their products, considering that there are a lot of competitors and consumers that can find or look for alternatives if there is substantial increase in their prices. Clothing is not a fast perishing good, and consumers can make do with what they have for the time being to ride out sudden price increases in these commodities.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. Is there any delegates who want to add their opinion or perspective from the answer before?
Can I answer for next to my partner? Okay. So actually, we also almost have the same types of idea, my partner and I. But I will be probably circulating that it is nice to enter money into the economy because of fast fashion, because it simply is one of the things that really is able to circulate money inside the economy, or especially with the economy of the Philippines. It simply is not the solution to support the environment and the world. So while it is nice to have these types of money circulating in our economy, it is not the best thing to do. That's why we should increase tax sanction in the fashion industry, because since generation and each generation really wants a demand, and also according to a study that since our individual our generation is the generation of awareness, so we are totally aware of these types of eco-friendly products. We are also the same people that also wants to buy a lot of clothes. So while we want eco-friendly products, we also buy a lot of eco-friendly products, making it much demand more, making it more produced. That's why we should increase the tax sanctions in the fashion industry so that people would literally determine and know what's their satisfaction or what the price of this one, and therefore value their clothing, because clothing is valuable and is one of the basic needs of the people. That is why for the next, again, I'm going to repeat it. Before, consumption is about survival, but right now consumption is now a means to satisfy their wants, which is the social status of what they want to look like, what they want people to look at them, and what they wear, what they want people to see of what their status is. That's why, with having this type of things, with that said, let's not just focus on the taxations of the fashion industry, but let us really focus on the effects of producing fast fashion. Because with fast fashion, it really harms the environment. That's why we should promote and prioritize the agriculture sector always and always, because it is really the one thing that needs to circulate and one thing that needs to be prioritized. That's why there's a song in Filipino called Magtanim ay di biro. Planting is not a joke. Farming is a noble job and is more important than any other job because it's the one that helps us, and especially us Filipinos and Asians, we love rice. Yeah, that. So actually, yes, Filipinos, we love rice. Yeah. Also, since with that said, the government should prioritize farmers the most, because when we're going to prioritize the farmers, money surely will circulate in the economy rather than focusing on fast fashion and producing of these types of products. And that is my side for this one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the very insightful answer and inspiring for our country to and other country to adopt this farmer prioritizing. So is there any other delegates who want to add any opinion about this case? Maybe from Mr. Arya, you want to add something? Okay, if there's no delegate from UNPAR, you want to add something to this case?
Okay, clothing retailers like Zara, Forever 21, and H&M make cheap and fashionable clothing to satisfy the needs of young consumers. Yet, fast fashion has a significant environmental impact. According to the UN Environment Program, the industry is the second biggest consumers of water and responsible for about 10% of global carbon emissions, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. And unfortunately, fast fashion problems are often overlooked by consumers. And of course, this affects climate change too. Climate change is a real issue that is right in front of our eyes. The Indonesia's government is making various efforts to support climate change control actions. Based on the Indonesian Ministry of Finance, a new milestone as manifestation to the government's strong commitment was again planted on October 7, 2021, through the ratification of the tax regulation harmonization law. The law regulates a series of fiscal policies, one of which is a carbon tax as an instrument for controlling climate change. So it is a must for the government to implement strict policies such as increasing taxes for this industry, because that is the least that they can do besides helping the environment by reducing the carbon emissions by themselves or by their own companies.
Okay, thank you so much for the opinion and answer from UNPAR delegates. Is there any other delegates who want to add something? Okay, maybe no any other delegates who want to add something. Let me conclude the point of question number 5. The first point is government need to take tax for the fast fashion products and make a strict regulation and prioritize the farmer. but the Asian government is hesitant to do something big because of the recession and COVID-19 pandemic situation. So, and the next point is demand for fashion can be elastic if the product price is increased. Fast fashion can circulate the money fast, but it is not the best thing to do. And lastly, this generation is generation of awareness that we need to buy eco-friendly products and share awareness that fast fashion is very harmful to the environment from their mass production. They will release carbon that very harmful to the air and the water. Maybe that's for the question number 5. Or you can continue to the last question.
Okay, thank you, Marcel, for the conclusion of the 5th question. And now I will continue to the 6th question. Okay, since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, economic activity in various industries have decreased, which has resulted in lower levels of air pollution. But when but when the condition of the pandemic gets better, economic activities will also improve. What steps can be taken to improve the economic activities, but on the other hand, does not worsen the air pollution? I think this is something we can all relate to since we all experienced the COVID-19 pandemic. So let us hear the opinions of our delegates. Is there any delegate who wants to go first? Maybe from Sunday, the university. Do you want to share your opinion on the question given about the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic impact and also the environmental impact?
Okay, I'll go first. I think there are a few that comes to mind. First, for me, is definitely government intervention. This could push companies to really invest in research and development to develop their production processes and or enhance their products to comply with sustainability goals. I think that a lot of companies have a wide profit margin as a result of a lot of cost cutting measures that they employ. These profit margins can bear the brunt of additional costs in investing in eco friendly alternatives. Governments also have a wide leeway to choose between employing the carrot or the stick method to achieve its purpose, or it can even use a mixture of both. Examples use penalties or fees for activities that have direct or substantial impact on the environment and grant incentives for those who comply. Conversely, as consumers, or consumers can also take initiative to help in these endeavors. Or consumers also have to acknowledge that they have a huge part in this undertaking. Their behavior or our behavior towards non-compliant producers could purge the industry of harmful players or cause them to comply with sustainable practices. Either way, it's going to be a win-win situation for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Mrs. Sheng.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, hello.
Yeah, okay.
Sure, go ahead.
So yeah, I totally actually agree. And since she's my partner and we totally have like one thing in mind, that's why I'm going to discuss it in another perspective. And I'm the type of person that doesn't really blame anyone. But I believe that we must first start within ourselves. Because as future leaders of the world, we need to be reminded of what we need to do and how we can do it. Because since we're young, how then can we do it? To truly become living advocates for sustainable living. And through the love of our environment and knowledge of the world, of what we ought to do and to teach the people, by becoming an example for everyone to see, by standing out among those that stand out. That's why we should always root for sustainability, for the recovery of our economy, and to fully know our purpose as the citizens of our very own country. Because the Philippines, we believe that we are a democratic country. It is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So since us individuals have that kind of tendencies to be aware of who we are, of what our right is, what we ought to do now is to become living advocates for people to see, to make that change, to become a living example for everyone to see. That is why, with this once that we have achieved these things, once every youth, every people of our generation become the leaders of the future, we can truly make a change because it is us who will sit there in the future. We will be the future government. We will be the one that will start the change. And we can do it through determining who we really are and fully understanding what our identity is in this world. And that is mine.
Oh, I can really agree to that. Thank you very much to Mr. Guarino. That was very amazing, I think, your answers. And maybe to the next delegate. I welcome any delegate who wants to go next to share their opinions and share their perspective about this question and this case.
Well, maybe I can go next. But yeah, I have another different perspective again. Well, from Indonesia, well, within that the way we can to what steps that can be taken for the economy to catch up during the pandemic, but on the other hand, does not worsen the air pollution is to use the public transportation when traveling, especially for the workers. They can use bus or maybe MRT, or they can walk on cycling because yeah, also it's better for us for our health, for yes, for our health to do this routine of cycling or walking around 30 minutes per day. And this walking and cycling also help maintain both our physical and mental health, to improve our immunity and as well as to reduce our weight. So it's not only the beneficial of our health, but also beneficial for our environment too. That's it. That's from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chen. And that's right about public transportation. By the way, in Indonesia, we have public transportation such as MRT, right, Shannon? MRT and Transjakarta, maybe. We already have those facilities, and we really hope that people would use those public transportations more often. Thank you very much, Shannon. All right. Is there anyone who wants to add something? Wants to add their opinions?
Can I?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The task is the first of all make the economy move, and the second is to reduce what the pollution. So electric car is everywhere nowadays, like Tesla, Wiyung, etc. But it's one of those breakthrough that can reduce what do you call it, pollution. But the problem is, where is the electricity? The electricity is produced by, you can say, oh, but the industry, it's still the same, that it will cause a lot of pollution also. But how about we use there is a crazy project called the Project of Desert Sahara. That project is basically where we put a lot of solar panel in the desert Sahara to enlighten the whole earth. So the Project Sahara is one of those crazy project that will very much useful, because if those project is like if those project can be used, that we can reduce the pollution, because the electric car is one of the breakthrough that will reduce pollution many greatly. For example, if we stay at home, the reduction of pollution is still very low. But if we go outside the home, because we need, for example, public transportation itself. But for me, we have to move places to places. Public transportation, I agree again. I agree with you, first of all, but public transportation is, how do you move to place? It's very hard because it's immobilized. So if we use a private car because in Indonesia itself, no, especially in Jakarta, there is a terminology for 3-in-1. So it's very useful for the reduction of the car production. And second is the reduction of pollution itself, but it's not used because there is called joke in here. The next question is, how do you utilize that electricity is the next thing that will reduce pollution itself, because there have been some research has shown that electricity cars are better for the environment. They emit fewer greenhouse gases and air pollutant than petrol and diesel cars. Yeah, of course. And this takes account the production of electricity generation and keep them running. But problem is the electricity. Therefore, about the crazy project about desert Sahara, but it will cause a lot of harm to the environment. And in the desert, it will be very hard. So it will impact to in the increasing heat in Earth. But how about we use a geothermal? In Indonesia itself, we have many volcanic mountain itself, and we have the endogenous power itself. So if we use geothermal, the power that will the under Earth itself in the seismic, the below in the seismic, so we can use it. So the next thing, how we utilize it and how the government make an advantage of it. First of all, if we're being realistic, the government itself, it's very hard to make a scientific progress. It's very hard because they are talking about politics, social economics, and the many complex structural things. But because the scientific breakthrough is like it's not in their priority. It's like very below it. So the private sector is coming. How do we make the private sector is eco-friendly, first of all, and how we can utilize it, the most of it, to the maximum optimal? So instead of the government, I think, how about the private sector? How about we are, embrace it to make a lot of company that we can help each other to make the earth better place. Yeah, that the idealistic things that we can do. But if we stuck in one thing that we have pressure the government a lot. We have to do this. We have to do that. I'm being pity of them because they have a lot of pressure. And so how do we utilize it? It's private sector, first of all, and we have to see that scientific breakthrough is one of those things that will also make our life better. For us, first of all, if we have COVID, we don't have gonna be in this Zoom. We're gonna the Zoom, the Google Meet, it's less utilized before the COVID because of the COVID itself. The government have to push about the limitation of scientific progress itself. So for me, because of the urge of the urgency where the pandemic, it urged for the scientific progress, therefore electricity car, electricity, that is one of those problem solution thing for a long lasting life. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to Mr. Arya Satya. And thank you to all delegates once again for answering this question with all good answers. And I can really gain a lot of insight and knowledge from your answers, especially because we live in different countries and we experience a lot of different things and we have different knowledges. So from this discussion, we can gain a lot of new knowledges. We share a lot of things. And once again, I want to thank to all delegates, and I really appreciate all of your insightful answers. And honestly, I'm really amazed by your answers because you really gave very insightful questions. I can even agree more. So I'm sure 100% that from our discussion session, all the audiences, even me and Marcel, gain more knowledge and insights. Thank you very much once again. And now I will let Marcel continue.
Okay, thank you, Ari. Unfortunately, the discussion session has come to an end. And now it's time for the question and answer session. All audiences are given the opportunity to ask any questions to the FLD delegates regarding the topic of consumptive culture. Audiences may use the raise hand feature, then wait for your name to be called. Then you may ask your question. If you have any trouble speaking through your microphone, you may write down your question in the chat box and I will read it out.
Is there any question?
And maybe Ari, I need to add something. This question and answer session is open to delegates to question and any other delegates, and any other delegates can answer the question.
All right. Right. So please, to anyone who wants to answer, please do not hesitate. We are open to another discussion. Okay, maybe while we're waiting for the question from audiences or from the delegates, I already have a question for the delegates, and you all may take turns to answer this question. May I, Marcel?
Sure, go ahead, Ari.
Okay. So I think that every country or even every city has its own problems with the consumptive culture, and usually it's because of the society's consumptive habit. So I'm just curious, what is the one most problematic consumptive habit in your country, in your respective country, or in your city that you usually find in your daily life, whether it's among your family, in your school, in your university, among your friends, or just among the society in general in your country? All right, there is Mr. Guarino who wants to answer.
Sorry. So before I would start, we know that like a birthday or any events is really like big for us Filipinos, because with this one we always get a lot of caterers and such. We even buy a lot of food, and sometimes the food isn't literally not not being finished. Like there's a lot of excess food that is not being consumed by the majority, because sometimes some people that are invited are not going, and sometimes there's just too many food. And I think the very thing about us is the Filipinos are really reflected by the globalization culture, or the westernization, that we tend to think of ourselves as someone that would want to be like those of the westerners. It's probably because of how we are shaped by our history, of how our history has changed our identity into us having different types of culture in our country itself. That's why we have these types of events such as festivals and such coming from other culture. And every month we have a festival, such as in our own cities, we had like literally a lot of food where it's just going to be given, and sometimes it just have come to waste. And aside from food, the Filipinos also has problematic, not has problematic, but has problems with really thinking of their money, because sometimes in like saving isn't really for every Filipino. I think saving is really not for everyone. But if ever that Filipinos would be able to think of to save, think of investing and such, truly the world could be a better place. The Philippines could be a better place. That's why, with that said, the number one is like excess food, especially with parties and such. And next is that Filipinos have a problem of saving, because they don't literally think about money. Once that they get that money from their income, they just like eventually will just spend it, because in their mind, I deserve it. And I think that's another problem for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guarino, for sharing your experiences in Filipino, right? And to Mrs. Sheng, maybe you want to add something, or do you agree, or do you have another opinion regarding the opinion of Mr. Guarino?
I feel really guilty as well. I think as for a consumption habit here in the Philippines, I believe Filipino consumers love to buy things that are on sale or with discounts. Particularly here in the Philippines, content creators, as mentioned, can market fast fashion to their viewers. Celebrity endorsers as well can collaborate with different brands. It seems as if these people promote their favorite products in an affordable way, but then these partnerships also promote unethical clothing consumption, as well as the abuse of garment workers and, of course, the dangerous environmental practices, all while making celebrities and or content creators and their brand partners millions of dollars. But at the same time, celebrities and these content creators have become more than just inspirations for fast fashion, but promoters as well. So I'd also like to add that this consumptive habit here in the Philippines becomes a problem, especially at this disposal stage of these clothes or these clothings. Thank you.
Thank you for Mrs. Sheng. I think you can agree with Mr. Corino, right? And I think most of my fellow Indonesian people can also relate about the discounting because it happens. It also happens a lot in Indonesia. Maybe from Mr. Arya Satya, Mrs. Shannon, and Mrs. Catherine, you want to add your perspective or your opinion?
Well, yeah, maybe I can go first. Well, from Indonesia, actually, the problematic is about the consumptive culture is also food waste, and I really agree with Mr. Dihan. Am I right? um, because well, yeah, usually we throw out like parties, wedding, and maybe just a meeting, lunch meeting, something like that. But then we ordered too much food and ended up throwing it away. And also, I think it's not only because of um, we ordered too much, but I think it's also like there's a habit in Indonesian people. This is my personal opinion. Okay, like they want to look. How to say it? Yeah, they want to um, like they want to look like they have money if they order a lot of food. Do you get what I mean? Like, yes, like you can say, oh, I'm rich because I'm ordering many food, but ended up not finishing all. Yeah, that's it. I think it's one of the problem and the biggest problem from Indonesia in my perspective. That's it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shannon. And I think I can also agree with your opinion because I think we live in the same country and we experience a lot of similar things. Maybe from Mrs. Catherine or Mr. Arya Satya, do you want to share your experience or opinions?
I agree with Shannon and other delegates, but I just want to add something up. And from Indonesia perspective, in Indonesia, we have an overconsumption when it comes into online shopping, when it comes into food, and when it comes into unique, rare object on internet. That, for example, we love to buy rare Christmas mugs because it's really cute and it's we have FOMO, afraid of missing out. So we're afraid that these mugs are already off season or it's already expensive like that. And for the other example is when it comes into online, no, when it comes into food, but it's delivered by somebody else, like Uber food. But in Indonesia, we have GoFood. So because it's someone else, the one that bought it for us and deliver it for us, we usually overuse the app and over like food waste. At the end of the day, we waste lots of food just because we want to taste something new because there's lots of new cafe, and new business that open in Indonesia. And Indonesian culture, usually, we always want to try something new because, again, FOMO, afraid of missing out. And perhaps that's the only opinion that comes out into my mind right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Catherine. And yes, I agree. Also, same as Jens, because I also live in Indonesia, so that would be something I really relate to. Maybe Mr. Arya Satya, do you want to share your opinion? Right, I think if not, thank you all for the amazing answers, and I think that is something I'm really curious about. So I think my question is already answered by all of you. Maybe Marcel, do you want to continue with the next question, because we already have a question in the chat box.
Okay, thank you. So the question is from the chat box from Benedictus Iskandar. I have a question for all delegates. What is your solution that you have already applied to reduce consumptive behavior in your daily life? Maybe you want to start first? This is a very interesting question about our daily life.
I guess I'll be starting again. Okay. So I actually wanted to add like from the question before that like my consumption rate is coffee. Like I really love coffee. It's the very thing that I always waste my money on because like one coffee isn't enough for a day. But aside from that, what is my solution that I have already applied to reduce consumptive behavior in my daily life? Well, I'm the type of person that I really love to save, but when it comes to coffee, I can't say no and that. And I actually don't know how to online shop, so that's another thing. And I've just been recently being like commuting using like a Grab motor because it's like really literally I don't have that kind of like courage to do that because I think it's too much on money and such. And with that, I'm not really the type of guy that always like consume and consume because I really love saving. And while I had problems like recently, I overspent and forgot about my money. I really regret it. But what it what I learned from it is that truly I need to really take care of myself. I need to determine who I really am. And with that said, I need to know my status in life. That I am not just any other guy that is really rich that can just spend a lot of things and have anything I wanted. But for me, I am the type of person or that needs to know what I need to have. Because with what I can have, it will satisfy me not only mentally, but it will satisfy me physically and everything of who I am. So that is what I am going to apply with my consumptive behavior, that I'm not literally the type of person that always goes out, but that, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. Is there any other delegates who want to share about their experience in daily life to reduce consumptive culture?
Yeah, I guess I will answer. Do you want to answer first, Shannon? I'm sorry. It's okay.
Okay, and go first.
Okay, thank you. As for me, again, I believe that sustainability is a shared responsibility. So as a consumer and of course as a future economist, I've before actually before college and before being introduced to the intricate concepts of economics, I am really guilty that I buy everything that I want, and I have no control of myself. But now that I believe I've learned a lot from my professors, and I can very much apply the concepts that I've learned, especially when it comes to consumption. I always think about, do I need this? Like, there's this never-ending dispute between wants and needs. But now that I have this knowledge about consumption and how it can be detrimental, because I believe that too much of everything is detrimental. I would like to quote Miss Catriona Gray, our Miss Universe 2018. She said that everything is good, but in moderation. So I personally apply and contribute to raising awareness of course, with my classmates, with my family members when it comes to consumption. Because at the end of the day, again, sustainability is a shared responsibility, and we are all going to comply with that. And if we are all aware of how detrimental it is for our economy and for the environment, um with regards to consumptive culture, then I believe that we can solve this problem, because you can't solve a problem if you can't first acknowledge that it exists. We cannot answer a problem when we ask the wrong questions. So that's how I contribute. Personally, I believe that we must first there's a compelling need to raise awareness. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. Maybe Shannon wanna go to answer this question?
Okay, well, for my personal experience, well, I usually like also want to try to do this minimalist lifestyle and sustainable lifestyle. So usually I always bought my tumbler everywhere I go, so I don't buy any mineral water. And then I always bring one or two plastic bags in my bag, in my tote bag, in my backpack. I always bring one or two plastic bags. So if I bought something, so there's I don't need another plastic bag. I can use mine. So I reuse my own plastic bag. And sometimes I also bring my own lunchbox to take out some food. And also about maybe in online shopping, I do that conscious shopping principle. So I always think twice really before I check out. Like, do I yes, like what Miss Diane said, that do I really need it, or um will I use it often or just once, something like that. So that's how to reduce my consumptive culture. And also, I always make a list of what I need and what I want, and also I'm budgeting myself. Um, like there's a budget for fashion, there's a budget for food, so and etc. So if there's I almost exceed the limit of my budget, I will stop scrolling on e-commerce. Yeah, that's how I reduce my own consumptive culture.
Okay, thank you, Shannon, for the answer. Maybe other delegates want to add the answer from the delegate before. Okay,
Well, my problem is when it comes out into online consumption again. But my solution to reduce consumptive behavior in my daily life is by reducing my screen time. And basically, when I reduce my screen time, I try to new activities, new hobbies, or even join extracurricular organization. It would help me a lot, and even perhaps only take some walk to refreshen up my mind up. And the other solution that could help me is, well, basically self control and finance management. I need to learn about both of them, and it's so hard for me to fix myself up, because it's so hard for us to fix the internal factors rather than the external factors. That's why. But those solutions finally help me a lot these days.
okay, thank you so much. Maybe now it is the end of the question and answer session. I want to thank all FLD delegates for their participation in this breakout room and the audiences for paying attention and being involved in FLD discussion session. Before we return to the main room, let's all open our cameras to take photo together. To the documentation committee, please take the lead.
Good morning. Excuse me. Please allow me to take a picture for documentation purposes. I will now take a picture on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. To the next slide. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry before for the technical problem. And now all delegates and audiences may leave the breakout room and return to the main room. See you in the main room. Thank you.